Hi there motorhome owners. Today on your 2015 motorhome with a Ford F53 chassis, we're going to be taking a look and showing you how to install Roadmaster's rear anti-sway bar.
And this is what your sway bar is going to look like when it's installed. It's an auxiliary sway bar that's going to be installed in conjunction with your factory rear sway bar. Your factory rear sway bar is here right in front of your rear axle, and our new sway bar is installed right behind the rear axle. The newer sway bar is even bigger, beefier, and more robust than your factory sway bar, so when working in conjunction with it, it's really going to help minimize sway. What this means for you is you will have a more enjoyable driving experience because the motorhome's not going to be swaying back and forth as much whenever you have a crosswind or a large semi passes by you, or if you hit any uneven pavement. That rocking motion is going to be minimized as the torsion of the large arm that we just placed on here is going to help bring it back to center. This is going to make it more comfortable for you and all of your passengers because you're not going to be getting thrown around as much on the inside, and it's going to make things much easier on you as a driver to maintain straight control of the vehicle. So you and your family will not only feel safer and more comfortable, but you're also going to have more energy when you arrive at your destination because you weren't fighting the steering wheel so much, trying to keep it in a straight line. It's a solid steel construction with a black powder coat finish. So once you get down and install this on your motorhome, you can be assured that it's going to live the entire life of your motorhome. It's going to be doing its thing back here, minimizing sway with the heavy torsion bar here. And there's no adjustments or greasing necessary. So once it's installed, you can forget about it and you'll just enjoy the benefits from here on out. This is a custom fit for your Ford F53 chassis. There's no drilling required to get it installed. It simply bolts onto your frame and onto your axle. And you may also want to consider picking up Roadmaster's front anti-sway bar for the maximum amount of sway reduction. To further improve the ride and drivability of your motorhome, you can also put on sumo springs for the front and rear, as well as a steering stabilizer. This is going to help bring your motorhome into a more controllable, easier to drive beast. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let's walk through the installation together so you can feel confident to do it at home. You'll begin your installation by raising up your vehicle slightly. You can use your leveling jacks to do this, and this will give us the clearance we need to access the bolts for installing our side brackets. You don't want to be underneath the vehicle, however, to work on it when you're using your leveling jacks unless you've got a jack stand placed under the frame for safety. Once you've got it lifted up high enough, you'll be able to access the bolts located here just above your leaf spring at the bottom of the frame, right behind the rear tires. You'll want to remove the bolts using a 21mm socket. There's a nut located on the back side. It's sitting on the frame. You'll want to make sure you retrieve that as well. You'll want to remove the other lower bolt on this side and both lower bolts on the other side of the RV. We can then take the brackets that come in our kit for the side of the frame. We're going to take it and place it underneath the frame with the L butting up against the outside of the frame like that. You'll want to line up the holes in your bracket with the holes that already exist in your frame from where we had removed the previous hardware. We're going to reinstall the hardware we just removed, making sure we go through our bracket. The nuts on the opposite side have a tab on them, so that way you don't have to hold it with a wrench or anything. So just slide your nut back on, thread your bolt into it, and then you're going to repeat that for the other hole, and then you'll install the bracket the exact same way on the opposite side. Then we can tighten that hardware back down. We're now underneath the vehicle. You'll want to make sure you lower it back down off the leveling jacks at this point and place it back on the ground. We've got ours on a lift, but you'll most likely be doing this on the ground. We'll need to remove the nuts for our U-bolts on the rear axle. You'll want to do one side at a time. We're going to start here on the passenger side and remove all the nuts. I like to leave one nut just barely on there to keep the plate from falling all the way off. Now I'm going to push the plate up all the way, remove that last nut that I was using to hold that plate, and we'll take the plate that comes in our kit here shaped like this. We want to make sure that the 4 small holes are facing towards the inside of the vehicle and also towards the rear. So our slotted holes there are going to be facing towards the front. So we're going to go ahead and now line this up with our U-bolts, and we're going to reinstall the hardware that we removed. Once you get one nut on there, it'll hold it up, making it easier to install the rest of your hardware. Then you'll want to tighten this side down. You want to go back and forth to make sure you tighten it down evenly. We'll now repeat this same process on the other side. We'll now torque them down to the specifications found in your instructions. It is an extremely high amount of torque, so you are going to need a very large torque bar to be able to torque it down. We'll now prepare our sway bar for installation. Take the bushings that come in your kit. We're going to smear some of the lubricant that comes in our kit on the inside of the bushing. We want to fully coat the inside. And then with whatever little bit of excess I have left on my finger, I like to just smear that on the outside. It's not necessary, but it can help minimize and reduce any squeaks and noises. Then take your bushing, spread it open, and slide it onto the end of your sway bar. We're going to do the same thing with the other bushing and place it on the other end of our sway bar. We'll now prepare our hardware to put the sway bar in place. You'll want to take the shorter bolts that come in your kit, place a flat washer on each one. Now we can lift our sway bar into position. You'll want to make sure you've got your bushings twisted up, and they're going to line up with the bottom of your brackets. Then take your bolts. We're going to go up through the bottom, place a flat washer on top, and then put a nut on the top side. We're going to do that on the other side of our bushing. Now there are multiple holes in your bracket. You're going to want to choose the holes that are most appropriate for it to fit. We're going to be using the rearmost holes on ours, and now we'll repeat the same process on the other side. Next we'll get our hangers in place. Take the pre-installed bushing end and slide it up into the brackets we installed on the frame. Take the largest bolts that come in the kit, slide from the outside towards the inside, going through your bracket and your hanger, and place a nut on the other side. We're going to repeat that on the other side as well. You can now lift your sway bar up. Using the same hardware, we're going to slide through the bottom of our hanger and the sway bar, place a nut on the other side. These are also going to go from the outside in. We can now go back and tighten and then torque all of our remaining hardware. We're going to use a 16mm socket and wrench for our bushing bolts. And we'll use a 15/16 for our end link bolts. And all the remaining hardware we'll torque to the specifications found in our instructions. I want to keep in mind you won't find torque specs for your hanger bolts, as those are not to be torqued. You just want to run those down until the metal touches the bushing. Now with all of our hardware tightened and torqued to the specifications found in our instructions, we're ready to take our vehicle out for a test drive and make sure everything's working properly. And that completes our installation of Roadmaster's rear anti-sway bar on your 2015 motorhome with a 4 to 53 chassis.